Welcome back to Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. After a week off, believe it or not, broadcasters need vacations too. I had to take one. Clarkey was here.
I was under the weather.
Yeah, Clarkey, you were. That's true. You were under the weather, but we're back. I'm excited. We're back, and we're very pleased to have our buddy Shawn Cottrill on of Team Cottrill to talk about some curling. And of course, we got to start with the wrap on what was a brilliant Scotties Tournament of Hearts up in Thunder Bay. And look, Shawn, I mean, we've talked about her a lot over the last couple of years with you on this show. I don't know that anybody was surprised with the outcome. I don't think any of the competitors were surprised with the outcome. It just feels automatic. It's Tiger Woods like that when Rachel Homan and her team walk into a rink, they're probably leaving with the championship.
Yeah, they're so far ahead of everybody else in this country and arguably in the world right now. If anybody bet on anyone else last week, I feel sorry for them because it was a poor decision right from day one. The only small surprise maybe was the 100% game in the final, just because that's never happened before in a final from a skip. But it doesn't seem to matter what you leave her, she's gonna make it.
What is it about the way she and her team are playing that have them so far ahead of everybody else in your mind? Like you and your wife are a high level curling team. Like you guys play the game at a high level outside of that night that you let Clarkey beat you.
Didn't let anything happen. You had no choice.
With that in mind, I mean, you guys are far bigger experts than we are. What is it that you see about how they play that has them so far ahead?
They're all playing well. The lineup change a couple years ago, bringing in Tracy at Vice. I think a lot of people wondered if that was going to work in the long term. Totally different personalities, but I honestly think maybe the difference in personalities is why it's worked. Tracy's quiet. She lets Rachel do her thing. Rachel just looks fearless right now. Like she's looked like this before, but she just is 100% confident in everything. She's 100% confident in her team. She's calling the right shots. There just is nothing going wrong with this team right now. It seems like everybody maybe on paper isn't playing the position you would think they'd play, but it's just working with this team. It seems like everybody's in the right spot. They found their place, and it's just clicking. The last 2 years have just been unbelievable. Like we've never honestly seen from a men's or women's team. It's crazy. Like I think they've lost 2 games to a Canadian team in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's absolutely mind-blowing what she's done, and another dominant performance capped off, as you mentioned, by that 100 shot. Like it's outrageous that she has won again, let alone what she did in that final, which, as you said, had never been done before. Like you watch her walk in, and you know, if you look on a lot of betting sites, like you saw the odds, like most books had her at like minus 500. Like that's how automatic she feels. Like if you're an athlete in a sport like that, and you're that under where you've basically got to lay a lot of money to make any money on a bet, like that is a huge sign of respect. It just feels to me when I watch her, it's like watching Marie-Philippe Poulin on a breakaway or Caitlin Clark shooting threes. Like in women's athletics, she is as automatic as anybody, and I just can't believe the run she's on. Of course, she's going to represent Canada in South Korea. I don't even know if I need to ask you if you think she'll win that. I mean, of course she will.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some teams on the international level that maybe aren't at her level, but they're maybe at a little higher level than the depth of field in Canada right now. I think women's curling in Canada in general is in a bit of trouble. There just isn't a lot of depth. Rachel's struggled with the Korean teams the last couple years. If there was anybody she struggled with, I think 4 of her 10 losses have been to the same Korean team. But yeah, like if they play like they played at the Scotties, I think they're going to be pretty tough to beat.
At the Scotties, the first game I watched, I think it was the first game of the tournament. I think it was Krista McCarville and Nancy Martin, I believe. It was a frustrating game to watch. Neither had really any command of the ice. They didn't have a clue what was going on with the ice. They kept saying the humidity was up. It was getting warm in the building. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not an expert when it comes to ice making. When it's minus 40 degrees outside, why can't they just open a door and make it cooler in the rink? Like, they were struggling with the ice.
Yeah, there's so much tied to like airflow, and it can't be too cold. If it gets too cold, generally, I'm not an ice maker either, but in the club scene, the colder it is, the straighter it is generally. So yeah, but managing airflow, the thing that really gets me is that they know these buildings, and I'm not sure why it's such a surprise 3 days in. Honestly, that was one of the most impressive things for me with Rachel, was she figured it out early.
Yeah.
And in the past, I would say challenging ice conditions have maybe been her Achilles heel if there was anything. But yeah, like the rest of the field looked tough for the first few days. Nobody could figure it out. Like, I felt like I might have had a chance, actually.
I was thinking the same thing.
Right.
Now, what do you make of, now I believe this is happening, the Battle of the Sexes, Homan versus Mowat. When is this happening? Are you aware of what's going on here?
I've heard rumblings. I'm not really sure on the details.
Okay.
But I have heard that it's happening.
What do you think? Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, like, I think it's a cool idea. If there's anybody who can keep it close against Mowat, Rachel's probably the one. I still think there's a big difference between the women's game and the men's game. They tried this once before and it was not close. I think it was at a Skins game, if I remember right. They had Rachel and maybe back in the Kevin Martin days still, but Mowat's team can hit so well. Like, I think it'll be okay, but I don't think it's going to be as close as people think it's going to be. That's just my gut feeling. I mean, going out and playing 100% in the women's game is different than playing 100% in the men's game. I think there's different
It'll be
shots,
interesting if it happens.
Yeah, for sure.
It would. Yeah, it would be interesting, absolutely. And I mean, again, Rachel's just, I think she's going to do Canada proud. I think she'll win in Korea. And I mean, again, that's part of her dominant story too, is that, you know, like in sports like this, like curling or tennis or like when someone loses and goes, oh, well, you know, like the ice conditions, it's like, well, the team that won also curled on that. Like, that just doesn't do much for me. And that lends to what you said, Shawn, about your concerns about where the women's game and our depth of field is in Canada right now. I think that there's improvements to be made there because she is so far ahead of everybody. Let's turn our attention to the Brier, obviously being held in Kelowna. This is always an exciting event. And I mean, you look at the depth of talent here, there's a lot. Headline, of course, by the Team Canada rink, which is skipped by Brad Gushu. I think that we know who probably his big contenders are going to be. Kevin Cooey's rink does look strong. Brad Jacobs is always strong. We'll be, of course, as we always do, cheering for our buddy John Epping because we love John on this show. But when you look at this field and you look at the way that Brad's rink has played in recent times, do you think that he should be the shoe-in favorite, or do you see...
Very good.
Do you see, you like that? Do you see a couple teams, maybe some that I just mentioned, that you actually think could be a favorite here?
Yeah, Gushu's not my favorite in the field. I think Matt Dunstone has a chance to be really good. And I also think Mike McEwen's team has a chance to be really good in this field. Jacobs is hard to discount. I mean, he's got probably the best team he's had in front of him with Mark and and Benny. It's a strong team, but if I had to pick, I think I'm kind of riding Dunstone for the week. Gushu's still super strong, but they just haven't been able to really kind of click on all cylinders since they made their mid-season lineup change.
Putting Botcher with them,
I think it will be okay, but anytime you bring in an experienced skip to play a front end position, I think you're flirting with danger a little bit. Super talented, never played front end, loves to have his opinion on the shots that should be played and how they should be played. I'm actually surprised has adapted to it as well as he has, but the team just hasn't been able to really kind of click, I don't think, yet. But maybe
it's gotta be different too, like sweeping, that's all the those guys don't sweep. Now he's got to call that ice as he's going down the ice and doing a lot of sweeping. It's different. It's a different game, and that's why I think they don't have super teams when it comes to Olympics and everything. You could put the 4 best curlers on the ice for Canada, but you gotta be a team.
For sure, yeah. If you have poor communication between 2 members of your team, it's not going to work. We've seen a crazy number of mid-season lineup changes this year. In my 30 years of following curling, I've never seen the kind of shuffles mid-season. We're used to it in between seasons, but the mid-season shuffles are something we've never seen. And you have to think that's a chemistry thing. These guys that are getting cut aren't getting cut because they're bad at curling. There's obviously something else that's not working.
And Botcher's gone. Correct me if I'm wrong here. He's doing some mixed doubles, which you do, right, with Rachel.
That was the plan. They did some. He was supposed to actually be coaching Rachel's team as well, and then that kind of fell off the radar when he got picked up by Gushu. They played in 1 or 2 events and the Olympic trials in mixed doubles, but that's probably helped them some over the last couple of years, getting a little bit of sweeping and following the rock down and that kind of stuff in mixed doubles. I think the powers that be are starting to realize in general that mixed doubles makes you a better curler. There's a lot of skills you learn and have to adapt in that mixed doubles game that you'll never learn in 4-person. And there was some teams at the Scotties this year. Nancy Martin's team, for example, 3 of the 4 of them are seasoned veterans in mixed doubles. And the way she called the game, you could see was her mixed doubles coming through. I'm not sure that team's a contender at the Scotties without their experience in mixed doubles. But
yeah, it's worth pointing out for sure. Well, quickly then, because we usually we did this last year as well. Obviously, you're our guest, Shawn. So I would assume if you're going to pick here, you're taking the Dunstone rink.
I am, yeah.
Okay, he's going to take Dunstone. Clarkey, I will happily give you the second pick.
I'm taking the shoe-in.
Yeah, you're taking Goosh. Okay.
Go ahead.
I don't know what it is. I like Kevin Cooey. I just like I don't know. I'm rolling with Kevin Cooey. Yeah, okay, I like him.
Good luck. Okay,
I like
good
Kevin
luck.
Cooey. There you go. Before we let you go, Shawn, as we mentioned, you and Katie, very good mixed doubles curling team. What is your year looking like?
Yeah, we're slowing down. We played a few events just to kind of keep in the game, but four spiels, play downs. We didn't qualify for provincials this year. This was the first year in 10 that we haven't played at the Ontario provincials, but not ready to completely walk away from it, I don't think, but we'll see when the season ends here. We still enjoy it. Different priorities in life, different age in life.
Yeah, you'll be soon. You'll be on the senior tour soon. No,
not that far away. That far away, Chris.
Dude, I'm right. I'm not joking.
You joke. We
are far away.
One of our events this year, we were out there for the quarterfinals. So there was 8 teams, so 16 players on the ice, and we were halfway through the first end. And I looked at Katie, and she saw this puzzled look on my face, and I said to her, "You know what? I am the oldest person out here."
There you go.
That's always a stark moment.
Yeah. So I said, "You know what? maybe we're getting near the end of our days here, my friend.
Well, I mean, no matter what, they've been great days, highlighted by some incredible championships for you guys. And we always turn to you guys when we want some curling expertise. Thanks so much for doing this, buddy.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, our friend Steve Sabourin, you know that guy from CKNX Jr Hockey, he's going to hop on here. PJHL playoffs are already underway, and we got to talk a little bit about the Four Nations tournament. I was gone. I was on holidays while it happened. We got to talk about it on the show because Canada won. That'll be next here on Instigating. Welcome back to Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. Thanks to our buddy Shawn Cottrill for coming on here and chatting about the Scotties and, of course, the upcoming Brier. Good luck to all of our teams that we picked. Clarkey, maybe you'll win this one. You don't win the golf picks. So
that's right.
We are back. And again, we were off last week. I was in the mountains in beautiful BC. And during that time, of course, a lot of things happened in the hockey world, including the start of the PJHL Pollock Division playoffs. And who better to have on to talk about that than the man who's watched the Pollock Division all year long on your radio waves on CKNX Jr Hockey on AM 920 and CKNX.ca alongside our friend Johnny K. It is Steve Sabourin. Sabby, how are you, man?
You know, I felt good coming into this session, but I feel a little left out with the fancy backgrounds. Like you and Clarkey are dressed up to the nines. So I got to get creative for next time.
I got to use the TV because I got to write it off. So it's got to be part of the set, right?
It has to be part of the set. Clever Clarkey. And I mean, this is just an accumulation of insanity over the years for good reason. We'll touch on that guy behind me too. But first, we got to talk about the Pollock Division this year. And Sabby, I mean, it's been a great playoff so far. I have to mention that as we record this on Thursday, February 27th, tonight is game 4 between the Barons and Flyers. Hanover could sweep. So by the time you see the show, the Barons, the defending champs, may well be into the second round. But you look at the other series, pretty good stuff going on here. Fergus is up 3-1 on Mitchell as we record this. Kincardine up 3-1 on Wingham. Mount Forest up 2-1 on Walkerton, highlighted by an absolutely insane 5 overtime game that ended at 10-2 in the morning, Sabby. I mean, what an unbelievable series. We've seen some overtimes in our time covering this division. We've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, well, our friend Johnny K was at that game, and he made it through the 4th overtime, but took off after that. I talked with him. And really, Walkerton just playing a smothering game. Of course, it's in the Walkerton arena, right? So the smaller arena, not a lot of time and space, and really just a disciplined team game. Luke Uhrig ended up getting the winner, and that's what Mount Forest has, a game breaker like Luke Uhrig, who was 5th overall in PGHL scoring across the province this year. So Mount Forest, and it's been a tight series. I mean, that's probably the tightest series out of all of them in the first round of the quarterfinals.
What's the longest game
incredible.
you've ever called, Sabby?
The longest game I've ever called off the top of my head was Wingham in Penetang back in 2014.
Wow.
That was with Aaron Armstrong, and they went, I believe, into double or triple OT. Everybody dropped off because Wingham was actually down 6-2 going into the 3rd or something like that, and they came back and tied it.
Wow.
And then won it in overtime. So I'm just glad I wasn't there for that Walker to Mount Forest one, because you run out of things to say in a hurry.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things, because I mean, you look at that, and I again, like, I'm in the mountains and I'm looking at these updates on Twitter because I follow all the teams on Twitter to try and like stay plugged in, of course, for when I jump in on occasion with you guys. And I'm looking, I'm like, Double overtime. Wow, that's crazy. I look a couple hours later and I've got a Twitter notification. We're going into quintuple overtime. I was like, that's got to be a joke, right? Like one of the team Twitter administrators is playing a prank. And then finally, yeah, Luke Gehrig scores to end it. And it's wild to consider that because like the NHL record, I believe, is 6. And I'm pretty sure that's the Keith Primo goal, Philly Pittsburgh, when Primo, and like, you know, you heard stories back then, like they're driving pizzas in at every intermission. Guys are annihilating orange slices and power bars. Like they ate the arena dry. I can't imagine.
Sounds like your kind of game, Drury.
Absolutely. Well, geez, if Sabby and I were in there calling that, I can tell you right now that we would be looking down at some of the Capitals staff who we're all good friends with. I'd be looking down there and being like, you got to wheel me in some Domino's or something here, boys. I bet the local pizza establishments had a banner evening in Walkerton that night, Sabby.
Well, and the other thing, too, is that luckily it wasn't deeper in the playoffs when you're in Clarington or somewhere far away where you had a 2.5 hour bus ride to get back home. So, But you know what? To be honest with you, the way it's shaping up, we could see some deep overtime playoff games this season, especially once we get into the semifinals, because the parity in the league on anybody can beat anybody on any given night. Has been so, like even Goderich Hanover. Yes, Hanover has a big leg on Goderich, but Goderich beat Hanover in the regular season. Goderich beat Fergus in the regular season. Like you cannot take a night off, and it's great to see. So, of course, our next broadcast is, as we record now on Thursday, is the Friday night Wingham and Kincardine, where the Bulldogs get a chance to sweep that series, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah, that'll be game 5, which will be on air at 8:00. Of course, if there's a game 6 in that series, it'll go Saturday the 1st at 7. Game 7 would be Sunday, March 2nd. But yeah, you look quickly before we move on, Sabby, like you talk about the opportunity for a lot more deep overtime games, tight series. I mean, this division remains the toughest division in this entire league to win, in my opinion, still. Hanover, we know what they're all about. They're the defending champs for a reason. Mount Forest still has all that star power and a brilliant goaltender, for sure, in Marshall Nichols. The Fergus Whalers, like, when they came into the league, you know, Jason Brier and his staff had designs on being good right away, and they were a 4th place finish in their first season. This year, they were not shy about saying, we want to win the championship. Do you look at them still as Hanover's biggest contender to potentially knock off the champs?
Well, you go 1, 2, 3, Ryan, and realistically, anybody has a chance. It can card an outside shot. They've made some late moves. Hanover is, of course, the most complete team when you look from goaltender out, no doubt about it. They have 4 lines that they can roll. They've been there before. Clarkey, you know the drill. Tough to knock off a defending champ, right? You know, they've learned how to win. They're also hungry from last year. They thought they had a chance to get by Clarington. They just ran out of gas, so they want an opportunity to get there again. The Mount Forest Patriots, a little small on the defensive side. If you're going to attack an area of their game, it would be their defense. They've got arguably the best goaltender in the league in net, the most experienced by far with his OHL experience. And then the game breaker and Luke Gehrig. I mean, he's the guy. He's so tough to stop. The Fergus Whalers, they put themselves in a really good position. They got a little deeper with some late pickups in the year, including former Waterloo Siskins player Jake Silva. So he's shoring up their bench. However, they did lose their top defenseman in the PJHL All-Star game, suffered an injury, which is so tough, and he's been ruled out for the rest of the season and will not return. So that's kind of a hit against them. The one thing I'm concerned about Fergus is consistency, going in and game out, and starting on time. And we saw that in this Mitchell-Fergus series, where they played Mitchell in the first game and promptly lost. And that's not something I could see Fergus being happy with. And they've since come back and notched a couple of wins. But that's going to be their issue is the consistency. They took Hanover 6 games last year in the semifinals, a hard-fought series. So I think they'll be more prepared this time around.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. Remember, you can catch all the playoff action on CKNX AM 920 and CKNX.ca with Sabby and JK. I'll be jumping in there at some point as well. And of course, very soon, Junior B GOJHL playoffs will start, and we'll bring you all the Cyclones action all the way through their playoff run. And of course, as always, we will follow the Pollock Division winner all the way through the playoffs. Last year, Hanover managed to go all the way to the semifinals, got knocked out by Clarington. They have designs on going all the way this time and potentially going after Schmalz Cup. All right, you talk about consistency, Sabby, and what we saw at that Four Nations tournament, which turned into a real gem and put a huge spotlight on hockey for a lot of people across this continent, which is so positive. I mean, it's turned into a real positive with all the buzz. I mean, geez, ESPN was leading with NHL's content. I mean, I think that's the first time we've ever seen that in our lifetime. So very, very cool stuff. Set against a backdrop, obviously, of very goofy political tensions, which I don't want to talk too much about other than to say to Old Orange Dawn that we will never be the 51st state and your nation will never be better than Canada at hockey. I'm sorry. Like, I know there's a lot of conversation and I feel big in my britches to say that right now. Because we won again, because we always win. And even though the states, they get the odd little cookie here, oh, good for you, back to we walked into this tournament, Steve, and look, I love our American friends. We love Buffalo Dwayne. I love my guys on the What the Puck podcast. That's Puck with a P, by the way, in Washington. I didn't swear. And, look, it's great, and I think that the backdrop of the political stuff is nonsense, but we walked into this tournament with a lot of people down there going, look at this loaded U.S. lineup, and Austin Matthews and the Kachucks playing on a line together, and we've got the best goalie in the world, which I do agree with. Oh, and we've won the last 2 World Juniors, and I walked into that going, oh, that's cute. I remember the first time Canada won back-to-back golds. By the way, that's the first time the states have ever done that the last 2 years. Like, that's cute. Nice. They get their cookies, but in best on best, the only thing they can hang their hat on is the 96 World Cup, Steve. We beat them when it matters most all of the time. What did you make of the outcome of this tournament, and how poetic was it that McJesus, Connor McDavid, stepped up and had his Sidney Crosby golden goal moment?
Well, I'm just going to back up. You mentioned the 96 World Cup. I was in Ottawa when Canada played at the time, the Czech Republic. Steve Yzerman had the overtime winner. The city blew up. It was amazing. And the States won on it was a shot, I believe, Adam Foote took from just inside the blue line and deflected off the shin pad. And the U.S. went down and scored. And that gave them the upper hand in that tournament. This tournament, no doubt, the U.S. was the favorite going in. But I think when you go head-to-head on the forward core of Canada, just so strong. And Clarkey, you're a goaltender. Binnington was the most underrated player in that tournament.
Hey, you know what?
Far.
Everyone was talking about it. I ate crow too. This guy was kind of shaky at times throughout the tournament. But man, oh man, when it counted, and that's what they kept saying, this guy's won a Stanley Cup. This guy's won a Game 7. This guy won a Game 7 in Boston. He'll be fine when the chips are down. Wow, did he ever, he stoned Matthews twice in overtime. Like, unbelievable saves. If it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have won.
No, and when you talk about coming up in the clutch, I mean, Marner came up in the clutch. Makar came up in the clutch.
What? He did? Mitch Marner.
Yeah, so,
wow.
I mean, how many times do you see Mitch Marner suck 3 defenders to him and leave the world's best player wide open in the high slot? Like, I mean, that was incredible. But, again, the margin of error at that level is so slim. It could have gone either way. Binnington doesn't make one of those 4 stops at overtime. The Four Nations Cup is going the other way. I will say as well, from a fan perspective, kudos to the players. No team in that tournament took a shift off. Like, it was fast, it was energetic, and there was no dirt. There was no high sticks coming through the zone. There's the rough and tumble in front of the net, which you get, and some pushing and shoving afterwards, whatever. But nobody's flying high with an elbow to clock somebody at center ice. Nobody's trying to push someone over, and hit the corner of the glass, a la Zdeno Chara. I mean, it was just a well-played tournament, and everybody's heart was forefront there, and it was great to watch.
It really was. And I mean, you mentioned it, and the guys on Overdrive were talking about it, like right from get-go, like that opening shift where Nate McKinnon ran Victor Hedman. It was like, okay, these guys are playing hockey here, man. Like they're playing for keeps, and it was great to see.
But did you think it would be any differently? Like, really? I didn't. I thought it was going to be like this the whole time.
I think there was a lot of skepticism because of and there were a lot of guys going, even Noodles on that show that I mentioned, like he was like, I don't know what this is going to be like. It's an NHL sanctioned event. Like it's not really best on best because Russia's not there. Like, there were
which
people
is
who were
true. There's no doubt about it.
It is the Russians.
It's 100%
the Russians
true. And with the political, not to get into politics, but what's been happening over in Russia, and then now what's sort of been happening in the U.S. How can they not let Russia back in?
Look, man, that's
you know what I'm saying? They're not going to ban the U.S. So you better just open it up. Anyway,
I genuinely, Clarkey, that is a conversation that is so far beyond our pay grades.
I agree,
but I understand exactly what you're saying. A lot of hypocrisy in our world, and I understand. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say, though, is that U.S. team is very good. They will push Canada again at the Olympics next year because they are good. Like, let's just get right down to it. And, yeah, they didn't have Quinn Hughes. Of course, all the excuses come out after they lose. Yeah. No Quinn Hughes and Charlie McAvoy, which is a legit thing.
Morrissey.
We were missing Cale Makar. Morrissey was, easily one of the best players when he was playing, got sick and didn't play. Like, the excuses come out in hockey, and like our friend Steve Dangle said on his live stream when McDavid scored, don't forget who runs this. It's us. We run this. It's our game. Have fun playing it. You can join us at the rink. Come play, but we win. It's ours. So I love that. It was great. I got to watch the game with my friends in BC, and we were freaking out. It was fantastic. And that winning goal, I want to touch on that too, because there's a guy that's been mentioned a couple times on this show. His name's Mitch Marner, and Clarkey loves to hate this guy.
Hey, you know what? You're right.
Clarkey loves to hate to love him. That's what it is. And Mitch, of the three big Maple Leaf guys that participated in this tournament, he was by far the best. And that's really good news. Yes, I know he needs a new contract, but that's the first time really since he's been a London Knight that I've seen that guy out there and gone, I'm confident he's going to make something happen. And it's his running mate, Austin Matthews, who I thought was atrocious in this tournament. Like, they had guys down there going, oh, Austin Matthews, he was their best player. I was like, did you guys watch the tournament? This guy's supposed to be the best goal scorer in the world. 0 goals. Oh, well, he had 2 assists in the final. Oh, neat. Didn't score. And he's the guy that blows the defensive coverage for apparently being a Selke candidate and leaves Connor McDavid, the best player in the world, wide open in the slot because he's chasing his best pal, Mitch
I've been
Marner,
dreading this conversation for 2 weeks. Go ahead,
He
Savvy,
was
jump in.
absolutely awful in this tournament. I will hear nothing else. And when the playoffs roll around, they need Mitch to do what he just did, and they need Austin Matthews, the highest paid player in the National Hockey League, to not do that and score. I don't care if he has 18 assists in the playoffs. He's supposed to be, I'm told, the best goal scorer in the world. He's nowhere close to the league leading goals this year. He's hurt all of the time, which is beyond his control, but that's the fact that of the matter that he is. And there's a 39-year-old guy in the league this year that is absolutely burying him in terms of historical relevance that he will never hope to touch. What did you think of the way Matthews and Marner played in this tournament?
Sabby?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know you thought that was for Clarkey, but it is for you.
It's for Sabby.
It is for me. Marner stepped up, but you also have to look at it of who surrounded him. But I think it's a huge psychological boost, knowing that he can play in the clutch, which hopefully will translate into a playoff run, and knowing that he can trust his skill and decision making. For Austin Matthews, you know what? I think it's my humble opinion that I don't think he got the support he needed from his teammates. I found the U.S. forwards a little more confused than what the Canadian forwards were. I thought the Canadian forwards were a lot more smooth. The American game, their strengths, the defense by far. Their blue line was incredible. And losing Charlie McAvoy for that final was like Canada losing Cale Makar in that round robin. I don't know. Like, if for Matthews, what if he scored on one of those two shots in overtime?
Well,
there changes. Like, I mean, you look at Binnington, and he just turned into a beast in that game. And I don't think anybody on their best day beats him at that particular moment in time. So it is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it carries over for the rest of the season and into the playoffs.
I guess, and I agree with everything you just said there, Sabby, and I want to touch again. I'm not trying to like rub salt in the again, we've got friends down there. They're an incredible team. You want to talk about defense? I would say, like, no doubt, hands down, the best D pair in that entire tournament was Faber and Slavin. Like, if people, they've talked for years about Jacob Slavin being the most underrated guy in the NHL. I mean, did he ever have a coming out party? Because if you didn't watch that guy and the way he played defense with that youngster Brock Faber, who the Minnesota Wild have a good one in that guy, like that pair, they were psychotic. Especially the game that they beat Canada in the round robin. Those two guys were absolute monsters back there. Here's the thing. And Binnington deserves his flowers too. The glove save he makes on Brady Tkachuk, and the two stops, in particular the one right in the low slot blocker on Matthews. He stands up and he does it. Here's the thing with Matthews, though, and we said this a few weeks ago. It was a while ago, Clarkey, when we had our buddy Dark Guy back on here. What did I say? Steve said two words right before he said Matthews maybe scores. He said the words, "what if?" And I said on this show about a month ago when our buddy Dark Guy was on, my fear for this guy, by the way, for the record, I don't want this to happen, but my legitimate fear for Austin Matthews is that he becomes a great player where we always say, well, but what if he did this? Because the fact of the matter is this, he didn't. And he's the best player on the Toronto Maple Leafs. I still believe that, of course. He's supposed to be the best goal scorer in the league. I think if healthy, he is still that. But when it comes down to the big clutch moments, I can't think of one he's ever had. I'm legitimately struggling.
Okay, but let me ask you this.
Big moment. Where is it?
Let me ask you this.
Signature clutch moment. He doesn't have one.
Before this tournament, where was Mitch Marner's?
Well, like I said, I don't know if you watched him much when he played for the London Knights, but Mitch Marner, and I know we're talking about junior hockey, Clarkey. I'm dead serious. Mitch Marner had, I would say, one of the top 5 greatest junior hockey seasons of all time. He's one of 2 players ever to be MVP of his league's playoffs and MVP of the Memorial Cup tournament.
That. What has he done in the National Hockey League?
I know.
I just hope
this.
I just hope that this has put him over an obstacle that he couldn't get over before. I really hope. Believe me, as much as I criticize Mr. Fancy Pants at times, and there he was the other night in the Leaf game, dropping behind through the legs at the blue line on a power play and giving the other team a breakaway. You got to stop that crap. But then he scored in overtime. Pants has got to stop. But some of the moves that this kid can do, when he tried to kick the puck over to Tavares in overtime, it was unbelievable. If they had scored that could have been the best goal I've ever seen. They didn't, but then he came back and won the game.
Well, the breakaway goal he did score was...
This puts him over the top. And you could see, at least I think, in that game against Boston this week, yes, it was a Tuesday night game in the middle of a long National Hockey League season, but it was against the Boston Bruins. He looked way more confident that he was going to win this hockey game than I've ever seen him before.
He was crazy good that night. Yes, he still had a little dipsy-do mistake. Yeah, but when it came down to clutch time, he did it. So there's my answer. That the loop-de-loops. That's my answer. He's got that Four Nations thing where he was the guy that set up that winning goal. And now, he scored the overtime goal against Sweden, and then the Boston thing.
The overtime
Where is
goal
Matthews?
Against Sweden. I had this not argument, but discussion with a guy named Max at where I work now at Hero Motor Products. I don't doubt that Mitch Marner could have scored that goal in overtime when it was 3-on-3, because that's what he does. But in overtime in the National Hockey League, he's not going to have that opportunity.
Well, let's see.
In the playoffs. But
I understand.
Anyway.
We'll see. But Mitch, I need Matthew. I need to see Matthews have one.
I agree,
moment,
and hopefully he can get over the hump too.
He is none.
He needs to.
Go ahead, Sabby.
No doubt about it.
So my question is, who on Toronto, Clarkey, is going to be the guy that's going to put everybody on their shoulders? Because when you look at the teams that go, who is it going to be? Working all the way back to teams like the 92 Toronto Blue Jays when Dave Winfield comes in and that, savvy veteran to,
no doubt.
I mean,
maybe the guy isn't here yet.
Then that's a huge problem.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. Don't worry.
Or is it Craig Berube? Is it the head coach that's going to make the difference this year?
Oh,
but can you pick a player on the ice right now that you can say he's the guy that?
Well, I can pick some who should be.
It's supposed to be 34.
Correct.
And to be clear here, guys, like I'm not sitting here trying to pick on this kid. I think he's an unbelievable goal scoring machine and an incredible talent. His consistent injuries worry me. He even referenced it in the tournament, and so did the coaching staff. Mike Sullivan was like, 34 is dealing with an upper body thing. He's always dealing with an upper body thing. And that scares me a little bit. But again, that's beyond his control. If he has a jersey on, it's like the O-Dog always says, if you have a jersey on, you're healthy. So if he has a jersey on, I expect with the level of compensation he gets in comparison to his peers who have done way more than him to earn that compensation, and his skill level that we see and we all know exists, it better be him. When the Leafs are in game 6 or 7 with a chance to clinch a series, albeit, God forbid, a game 5, end a series early for once, and it's overtime, and you can argue, better be him.
You can argue who the best player was for the U.S. throughout the tournament. In overtime, Austin Matthews was their best player. He got robbed twice. And yes, what if? I know it's a what if. I get it. But I would be more concerned. I would be more concerned if he didn't put himself in the spots to be able to do it. He did.
That would be a bigger concern, yes.
They're going to go in. It's just a matter of when. Not what if.
We keep saying that.
It's when, not if.
I'm sure. I'm
sure. Savvy? Right?
You know what? I would say that once he notches that one, he's going to catch fire.
One would hope.
It's going to be a roll. It's going to be. Well, I mean, I think you've seen it in Mitch Marner's play as David coming off that Four Nations Cup. You get that confidence booster, and all of a sudden, it's going to change.
One
but
one would hope.
I would still argue that they need a guy who puts them on their shoulders to let them do what they do best. And that's Marner to set the table, and Matthews to score. Who's going to be the veteran guy that's going to be your Messier or your whatever in that situation?
Yeah. He's got to break through, and I would love to see it because he's so talented, and I don't want him to turn into a what-if guy. Yeah, I know you would, Clarkey. And moving on quickly here, because there's one last guy that we got to touch on, and I find it almost poetic that Clarkey's got the red background on his TV. I don't know what he did that
for number 8.
That's wow.
Yeah, I put
guys, as we record, my guy, the big dog, the Russian machine who never breaks, Alexander Ovechkin, is 12 away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's record of 894. Scored a hat trick the other day, gets another one against Calgary. It is, I can't believe it. Like, this guy, I've ventured to say that I've seen 90% of his goals like live when they happened on television. I can't believe that he's still doing stuff that makes everybody go, I'm floored by this guy. This guy missed 5 weeks with a broken leg, the most significant injury he's ever suffered. And he's come back and people were like, well, you know, that 5 weeks, maybe that means he has to break it next year. And all of a sudden he goes on a goal scoring tear and he's like, no. This year, he's on pace to do it by April 4th against Chicago. And I mean, God, if he's 1 or 2 short and he goes into Chicago, you know he's breaking it because the Blackhawks are a joke. I'm so floored by this. And guys, I just pray that I'm not on the air calling a Guelph Storm game when he does it. Because if he does, I'm going to be inconsolable. And my buddy Mark Perry is going to have to take over play-by-play for a couple minutes. I want to see it live. And Sabby, we've talked about this guy for years. You know, I came into the newsroom with you at CKNX, big Caps guy, and we've had 150 conversations about Ovi. What do you make of this guy at 39 having one of the greatest old seasons in NHL history?
Well, I mean, it's an amazing feat in the world of hockey, in the world of athletics, and that's the one thing about records is records are made to be broken. Because it sets the bar, and as soon as someone gets the drive and the work ethic, because it's not just all skill. You have to have skill, but you also have to have a work ethic behind it to keep yourself healthy, to keep yourself in shape and in the game and in the moment. And it's been an amazing ride to watch him do this. And there's going to be detractors out there who will try to knock it down and say, oh, you know, the eras are different and this and that, and there were rules back then and rules. You know what? Take all of that off the table, because at the end of the day, it's the number, and that's going to go into the record book whenever it happens, April 4th, before or just after, and it's going to be great to see.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. And I mean, I've always said this to anybody who said, oh, well, you know, the game was rougher back then. Alexander Ovechkin has more hits than any other player bar three guys, pardon me. There's 3 players since Alex Ovechkin has entered the NHL that have more body checks thrown than him. 3. Cal Clutterbuck, Matt Martin, and Zdeno Chara. So take your physicality argument off the table. And he has shot and done the majority of his goal-scoring endeavors against, inarguably, the hardest goalies to ever shoot on in the history of this game. Based sheerly on the size of them. Because remember, the league didn't shave the pad sizes down to increase goal-scoring until the 16-17 season. He came into the league in 05-06. He was shooting on friggin' Nikolai Habibulin that looked like he took steroids before the game and ballooned into a small Russian tank. He looked like a panzer. Like, I'm sorry. So take that off the table too. He's an incredible ambassador for the game. It's incredible that he's doing this. And before we go and Clarkey and I come back to do our couch potatoes for the week, I got a bit of trivia for you. I find this interesting. I'll give you guys some cookies here if you can guess these guys. Ovi's 39. He just scored 30 goals, extending his record of 19 straight 30-goal seasons. That's insane. There's been only 3 guys other than him in NHL history that have scored 30 or more goals as a 39-year-old. Can you name any of the 3? One should be pretty obvious.
30 at the age of 39.
One guy should stick out.
Brett Hall.
Brett Hall. The Golden Brett didn't. Not Brett Hall.
Really?
Not the Golden Brett. Clarkey, any guesses?
Clarkey's pretty quiet.
Drawing a
Think
blank.
of good old guys. Come on.
Good old guy.
Thank you. Thanks for the
Like
hint.
yourself, Clarkey.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, man.
Mike Bossy.
Well, no, because Boss retired when he was like
Tired.
31. Right?
He was young. Yeah.
Boss couldn't score 50 anymore, and he said, I quit.
I'm done.
Which is legendary. If you really can't, I'll give him to you.
Go ahead.
Gordie Howe.
Right.
Come on, fellas. Gordie Howe, Teemu Solani, and the great Johnny Busick. How about that? Those are the only guys. And Ovi, of course. Of course, Ovi. Of
course.
Anyway, crazy stuff, man. I'm excited for him to break it. Four Nations was fun. And remember, everybody, you want your PJHL Pollock Division and GOJHL Listowel Cyclones playoff fix? You know where to go. You tune in to CKNX AM 920 and CKNX.ca with Steve Sabourin and Johnny K. What do you got, Clarkey?
I'm not saying.
You know,
I'm just thinking, like, when he breaks the record, does Trump make a post with Ovi sitting beside Putin in his Instagram thing and Gretzky beside Trump?
You had to go there. Yeah, you had to go there.
I said I wasn't gonna, but Ryan pushed me.
I pushed you. Yeah. I'd love to push Austin Matthews to score one clutch goal. All right. Let's let Sabby go. He's a busy guy. We got to let him rest the voice. Thanks, Sabby.
So, you're welcome. But I'm just going to toss in my couch potato for you guys.
Okay.
You can do with it for what you will, but I'm going to go back to Jordan Binnington. Couch potato, my couch potato, shut down all his detractors and
he
help
did
bring Canada the Four Nations Cup. So
all three of us probably said it before the tournament that was the Canada's weak point. So
been nasty, and he came up big.
He did.
That's
unbelievable.
That's what we do here.
Yep.
We're in the business of coming up clutch up here north of the 49th.
You have a sponsor for the couch potato for us too, Sabby? That'd be great.
Don't bother this guy. He's busy enough, for God's sake. Leave him alone. Clark.
All right.
Jeez.
Maybe next time.
All right.
Maybe next time. All right. We'll take another quick break, come back, wrap up with our couch potatoes of the week here on Instigating. Back to wrap things up here on Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. Great to be back. Great to be back on the show. Thanks to Shawn Cottrill and our buddy Steve Sabourin for joining us this week. Lots of great hockey stuff happening locally here. Remember, tune in to CKNX broadcasts for your PJHL and GOJHL Listowel Cyclone playoff hockey. Clarkey, couch potato time. I'm excited. It's been a couple weeks. What do you got teed up for me here, brother?
Well, I hate to name myself the couch potato, but I'm going to. And reason being, yesterday, Wednesday evening, I got to go back into my former life. And it was a great evening. I had a late invite down to the Conn Smythe dinner at the Royal York Hotel in downtown Toronto and met up with a lot of my old friends. And it was just great to see everybody. I took some photos at them. You can throw them up. Guys who you'll recognize. Ryan, there's Devo Brown from Breakfast Television. Christine Simpson and I in the middle there. And Gord Stellick on the right. Gordy's like, Clarkey, when do you want me on the show next? I'm ready. Thursday nights, right?
Right
Thursday
away.
Nights. So I said, we'll get you on, Gord. Just, you got to be patient. There's a lineup of people who want to come on the show. So Gordy will be on soon. You can flip that. There's other guys who said, when are you having me on again? Guy in the middle there, Rod Black.
Luke Wilson.
Luke Wilson coming on the show, man. I got him. I have the contact. Luke's coming on. No question about it. Like he said, I'll come on. No, not a problem. So Luke's coming on. Rod Black spent 3 minutes telling me why he doesn't do podcasts, and then said, Clarkey, I'll do yours anytime you want. When do you want me next? So Rod will come on. I know we've had him on. Well, his son Ty was playing in the bigs at the time.
Milwaukee Brewers,
and he has a great story about that. I'm not going to spoil it, but Rod told us a story about how he actually got to Milwaukee to watch his son play, and it was an unbelievable story. So I'm going to wait until we get on the show. Now, the top right corner there, that's Celeste and I. Celeste she's now in charge of the ushers and usherettes down at the Scotiabank Arena. I've known her for years. We worked at MLSE together for 15 years. She started at Maple Leaf Gardens as an usher in 1974.
How about that?
Still there.
Incredible.
Still there.
Incredible.
People will see Celeste everywhere if they watch the game. She's on the TV a lot because she's always down at ice level. And there, down the bottom right corner, there is Mike Gentile, friend of the show.
Yes,
I told Mike we're still waiting for that invite for his show on Saturday mornings. And the guy next to Gentile is an old buddy of mine, Digger Turnbull. Now, Digger and I go back probably to 1992. He was on the Fan as our fantasy sports guy. Nice. He used to run a fantasy sports services, it was called. He ran office pools before office pools were big. He was ahead of the curve. So Digger Turnbull, guy we should have on as well. He's got the gift of gab, and he'd be a great addition to the show. So all these guys are coming on the show again, and we just got to wait for the right time. But Luke Wilson, I knew you'd be pumped. Luke's coming on, no question about it. Now, one other guy I didn't get a picture with, but do you watch Shoresy?
Come on.
Okay, so I don't watch Shoresy. So there was a couple of guys. Terry Ryan was there last night. I didn't have it.
Oh.
So is he a big deal? Dude, I'm sorry. Yeah. I didn't talk to Terry Ryan. But the one guy I did talk to is Ryan McDonald. Do you know Ryan McDonald? He's the goalie in Shoresy.
Yeah. Yes.
Ryan's going to come on the show.
Never misses the mark, Michaels. Yes.
Okay, so that I don't know the show, and I got to watch the show. I admit it. I got to watch the show. But Ryan said, here's my number. Call me anytime. I'd love to come on.
Oh, my God.
He's a big Leaf fan. So he'll come on as well. So I have a bunch of guests. We're gonna start lining them up. They're starting to shoot, I think, season 5 of Shoresy next week up in Sudbury.
Yes.
But Terry Ryan was actually very funny. He was one of the speakers last night. He was at the head table, and he was awesome. He was really awesome. Guy. I got turned off because he kept saying how much of a big Habs fan he was. So I was like, I don't know if I.
Well, he was a first round pick.
He was.
A lot of people don't know he was a first rounder.
He talked about just he hated Michel Therrien. Did not like Michel Therrien, and
him and Michel did not get along very well.
Yeah, sure. And Dougie Gilmore was out there last night. I didn't have a chance to talk to Dougie, but he was there last night, and they honored Cito Gaston. Cito, I didn't get to catch up with. I was thinking if I see Cito, I got to use the card where I'm a former Tom and Jerry engineer, because if I had have said I was the former Bob McCown producer, he would not have come on the show because him and Bob did not get along. But anyway, it was a great night.
Tremendous.
I enjoyed myself immensely. It was a late night and an early morning to travel back to Exeter this morning at 6 a.m. after getting into my daughter's place in Oakville at 1 a.m. So I'm running on fumes, and it's time for your couch potato. And I know
there you go. Lukey Wilson, how about that?
Luke's coming on. Luke is coming on the show.
And I told him Geppetto bought farmers.
So when I said to him at the end, I said, "Listen, Hayes is a fraud. Hayes is not a fraud." And he looked at me and goes, "He's not?" I go, "No, he's not a fraud." And he looked at me and goes, "I'm going to tell him Chris Clark says you're not a fraud."
He'll love that. He'll love that. That's great. Go. Well, quickly.
Yeah.
Very
sorry,
simple
I took all
here.
the time.
No, you did, but this is very quick. Adam, put it up. My couch potato. It's very simple. We talked about this with Sabby. 5 overtimes in this insane game between the Patriots and the Walkerton Capitals. But Glenn Crandall set a new record, the Walkerton goalie. He made history by setting a new record for the most shots saved in a single game. He made 117 saves.
That's unreal.
Beating the previous record of 96.
Wow, he shattered it.
Glenn Crandall, you are far and away my couch potato of the week. Congratulations on an epic goalie performance. I tweeted when I saw them share this on social media. I'm not kidding. They should bronze his glove and send it to the Hockey Hall of Fame. I don't care what level it is. That's an insane number of saves to make. Glenn, you are absolutely my couch potato of the week. Enough said. Love those Capitals jerseys too. Oh, they're nice. All right, everybody. Great to be back. You can find this show Friday nights at 8, Sunday nights at 9 with our friends on Whiteman TV. That's channel 6 for Whiteman subscribers. We debut on our YouTube channel Friday nights at 9. You can follow us on social media at Instigating Pod and find our podcast on all your favorite podcast apps. We'll be back next week with more Instigating.